of, who is it again? It is Barnold Swatwalkin. Boy, that's a roller coaster of emotion with that one.
I mean, where do you think you get the name Barney from? Barnold.
Oh, is that what it is? I guess I never thought about it. I thought it was short for Barnabas.
And that too. But
Barnold.
Like Jerry can be Gerald or Jerome.
Right.
Barney can be Barnold or
Barnold.
Barnabas.
Barnabas, yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid, I don't know if you guys had him here. When I was a kid, there was an Illinois chain of pizzerias called Barnaby's. Did you ever have Barnaby's here?
I've never heard of Barnaby's.
And they had this, like, proscenium in the middle of the dining room that was encased in glass. And you could walk up as a kid and watch them make the pizzas. Like, the kitchen was, like, in the round. And it was the decor was kind of like old-timey lodge. And they're probably all gone now, but it was called Barnaby's. And God damn, was it good. That's where I started eating Chicago tavern cut pizza, Mary.
Tavern cut.
Tavern
cut.
Hey, I'd like another tavern cut over here, please. And then they'd come over and they'd say, why is this child talking like an old prospector?
Because he was born that way.
That's how I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And, hey, you know, we have bureau chiefs all throughout these United States and Canada. The iHeartRadio app is available to you all throughout North America. We have yet to have our first Mexican bureau chief. We have people overseas who listen when the satellites are aligned. We have people, we've got Dan in South Korea. We have Erica, who was teaching English to people overseas. We have Canadian bureau chiefs. We have one, to the best of my knowledge, unless somebody else is listening down there, but they haven't hit me up, we have one bureau chief in Key Largo, Florida. Way down there. Wendy listens from Key Largo. And Key Largo is in national news today because it is the first example of climate change and sea level rise wiping out a U.S. species of plant. It has killed the last of the Key Largo tree cactus. You ever heard of the Key Largo tree cactus or cacti? Is it cactuses or cacti?
Cactal.
Cactal. You know, for a long time, people said octopi, meaning plural Mary tattoos.
Yes.
But it's octopuses, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious if cacti has reverted to cactuses or what. But it has wiped out the Key Largo.
Cactopuses? Did you say cactopuses? Did I hear
No.
that right?
Cactopuses,
Did
yes.
you say that?
Probably. Cactuses. What did I say?
I thought you said
Cactopuses?
I thought you said
Guess what, Mary?
cactopuses.
Joke's on you. Climate change wiped those out, too.
Oh, my gosh.
The
Where all their
the
tentacles
indigenous-
have
Yes,
spines on 'em.
spiny tentacled cactopus. It's like a SpongeBob character.
not the cactopus.
Sea level rise for the first time has wiped out an entire species in the United States. The Key Largo tree cactus is no more.
I don't know if this is going to have the effect on climate deniers that we're hoping.
That we're hoping for what?
That, like, climate change deniers are going to be like, hear this and be like, okay, fine. I believe it now.
Oh, no. It's not going to change anybody's mind, but we're going to see more and more of these kinds of stories, is what I'm saying. Yeah, nobody who... And again, I think, like, climate change denial now is performative. You know, it's not... no reasonable person thinks it's made up. I was reading a story about this guy, Jim Inhofe, who was famous years ago. He's a member of Congress. He represented... Oh, God, what did he... Jim Inhofe represented the state of Oklahoma. So this all falls in line with what's going on there in Oklahoma. But he had been in the Senate for a long, long time, and the story broke this morning that he died. Jim Inhofe was 89 years old, and he had his raison d'etre, if you will, his whole thing was climate change is made up. This was a guy years ago who famously held up a snowball in Congress, in committee. Is like, if there's global warming, why do we still have snowballs? You know, really well-reasoned scientific consensus. So this was
question, Alan.
This is a guy who was, well, that's why it's not global warming, it's climate change.
Right.
But this was also a guy who was like, we need to raise the defense budget. You know, one of those, listen, he was a senator from Oklahoma, all right? This guy was not breaking ranks. Of course, I don't have to tell you he was a Republican. Of course he was. But his career in Oklahoma, if you can fathom it, obviously politics in this country have changed a lot over the last 30, 40 years. But when he became became a senator representing Oklahoma, that state still had a lot of like right of center Democrats. And then it went like full red. So when he first got in, it was kind of a big deal because it wasn't a red state. But he was one of these guys that ran on God, guns, and gays. And only one of those he didn't like. I'll let you guess which one he did not like.
God.
And that's what he ran on. No. He really, really liked God.
Aw, dang it.
So God, guns, and gays is what he was running on in the early 90s. This was kind of like the don't ask, don't tell era. But anyway, I mentioned Jim Inhofe because he did die, ironically, on the same day as the very last Key Largo tree cactus. Now, he didn't die because of climate change, but the Key Largo tree cactus has. And so it's kind of people who watch these kinds of things, these are indicators of extinctions to come. You know, people are like, this is, we're leaving this world for our grandchildren. No, it's all happening now. It's not going to this is not something down the road that will affect our grandchildren. It's happening as we speak. And so, listen, you might say, well, ha, ha, ha. Who cares about the Key Largo tree cactus? And if I hadn't read this, I'd be right there with you. But pity the poor South Floridian business person who just started their Key Largo tree cactus nursery. Or I don't know how what this is used in. You know, I don't know how viable it is. Maybe there's a tree cactus milk.
Listen.
Or something. I don't know what it could be used for a variety of things. I don't know. And their business has just gone south.
You cannot nurse a cactus. I have tried. It does not work.
You also can't
Very painful.
nurse an almond. Yet we have almond milk because almond juice would never sell. And pity the poor people trying to come up with dairy alternatives too, because boy, their heads are spinning. They're like, 1 week almonds are fine. Next week they're going to kill me. It takes so much water to grow almonds. That's another thing that drives people crazy. Almond farmers. But the Key Largo tree cactus is gone.
Hey, goodbye, Earth!
Now, listen, nothing is all bad or all good, right? So, climate change, silver lining, I guess? Because so much of the Peruvian glaciers have melted that it's revealing people who died along the way under the snow and ice. There was a guy who was climbing in Peru almost 30 years ago, and he died in an avalanche. And so much there in the Peruvian Andes has melted that they found this guy.
Whoa.
A 59-year-old guy at the time, June of 2002. So 22 years ago, this guy gets killed in an avalanche. And he was 59. There's simply no way to tell how old he would be now. But it's the ice melt that exposed his body. So his family,
Little closure.
they have it, you know. He had his passport on him, so all they had to do was check his body for ID, and it was right there. He was wearing his clothes, obviously. He had his harness on, his boots, because he was killed in an avalanche. And so the Peruvian, the main glacier there, the surface, is about 50% gone. And so this guy's body was revealed. And this happens on all these huge mountains. You know, these hikers who die along the way, they have to leave the bodies there. And so when things melt, these bodies are revealed.
This is like the glacier version of Lake Mead.
Yes. Yeah. All the mob murders and oil drums showed up at Lake Mead. Although Lake Mead has gotten back to like its previous levels, right? Lake Mead filled back up again.
I don't know.
That's got to be good news for the local mafiosi out that way. Because for a while, they were really, they were pulling their hair out, trying to figure out where they could put murdered stool pigeons in oil drums. Whatever remains of organized crime there in Vegas. I think Lake Mead is, But last year was the most fatal year in the history of Lake Mead because they were just pulling body after body after body. Because that doesn't happen here on the shores of Lake Erie, right? They're not constantly finding. People aren't driving. We've got so much shoreline here along the Great Lakes, but people still aren't driving out and throwing bodies in because they would just, there are no waves there at Lake Mead. You just weigh them down and they sink.
And I feel
We've got waves here. Would push them back onto the shore.
And I also feel like if people were to do that around here, they would know. You got to cut them up. You got to weigh them down.
Well, you take them out. Tony Soprano did, right? Big Pussy. And they took them out in the middle of, right? And then you drop them. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be people locally, ne'er-do-wells, if you will, people who regularly flout convention, run afoul of the law. Okay, I'll say it. They're stinkers.
Oh, how dare you, Alan? Hit the dump button.
I'm sorry. I'll say it. They're just stinkers.
They're just stinkers.
Wow.
And they're taking people out after they've murdered them, and they're take them out, past the breakers out on Lake Erie. It is shallow, yes. If they were smart, they would find a deeper lake, but
hey, it's deep enough,
Deep enough.
And if you Dexter it, chop the body up in pieces.
Yeah.
Have some weights in the bag.
Yep.
You'll be just fine.
Yep.
The Bay Harbor Butcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, yeah, there's a lot of things to consider. A lot of things to consider.
Mary, do you know how to do forgiveness now?
Why do you gotta bring that up?
I just
Do
wanna
what?
know.
I had therapy this morning.
You put on your story.
I know. I had therapy this morning, and whatever the last time I was there, she gave me an assignment, which was to write a letter to my dead dad. And so
I thought you already did this.
Write a letter to him?
Yeah, I thought she had you do something like that, or you were
This
journaling.
was like a month ago.
or-
This was my first time back. I was out of town, and then my family was here, and yada, yada, yada. So this was my first one. So then I brought the letter in, and I read it, and she would, stop me, and we'd break down parts of it, and she'd ask questions, and she's great. I love this lady. She's my favorite person.
I feel like you're making a lot more progress with this
I'm
lady
making
than
so much more progress
than
with
the
her
old
than
man
the
that you're
old
going
man who
to.
fell asleep
Yeah.
that I went to for 2 years. Yeah.
I mean, I can relate to him, but yeah.
Listen, whatever. Anyway, so she made me do that, and I brought it in, and the more we talked, the more that she was like, you're so angry. She's like, not just at your dad or with circumstances. She's like, you have a ton of anger in you. And I'm like, I am not an angry person. Like, I have never described myself as an angry person. She's like, you're very angry right now. She goes, and you also...
Did that make you angry when she said you were
It
angry?
didn't make me angry. I didn't believe her.
She's like,
like-
see?
I don't think
I told
you know
ya.
what you know what you're talking about. And then the more I would explain certain parts of things or whatever, she goes, you also have a big problem with forgiveness. And you guys are going to love this because I've talked about this on the show before. She asked me how often I would tell people things like, I told you so. And I was like, constantly, all the time, every day. I tell someone.
You're like,
told
I
you
love
so."
it. It's my
That's what you
favorite
live
thing
for.
to do.
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that. I was like,
You
it is
can
my
literally do
favorite
a comedy
phrase.
special called "I Told You So." Like,
It is my favorite phrase to use.
It's my hobby.
Yes. And she was like, yeah, that's because you have a problem with forgiveness. If people don't do something that you tell them to do or that you like, or if they make you mad, you harbor that anger, you don't forgive them, and then you just fester. And she's like, it's going to continue to hurt you. You're going to continue to have these like mental issues. And so she gave me a pamphlet on forgiveness, a little workbook. It's like 5 pages on forgiveness with journal prompts and stuff that I have to go through and fill out about my dad. So I posted a story today that I was on the train having to learn about forgiveness. I felt so stupid just sitting there with my little paper. Like, here's what forgiveness, there's like a whole column. Forgiveness is not.
Wow.
Do you want me, I actually have it. I can
You're
tell
like
you.
those little figurines.
Yeah.
Happiness is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love is.
Here we go.
You're going to read it.
You want me to?
I mean,
I
it
got
feels
2
like it's
minutes
something.
till
It
break.
feels like it's personal.
No, I'm not going to read what I wrote. I didn't do it yet. She gave it to me on the way out.
Oh.
No. Forgiveness is a process where someone who has been wronged chooses to let go of their resentment and treat the wrongdoer with compassion. It's a little definition for everybody. What forgiveness is.
Yes, most of us, Mary,
Not me.
know what forgiveness is.
Apparently, I don't. What forgiveness is.
What did you think
It's
was?
implementing it that's the tough part.
Learning.
Everybody knows what it is.
Yeah. What it is, the decision to overcome pain that was inflicted by another person, letting go of anger, resentment, shame, and other emotions associated with an injustice, even though they are reasonable feelings. You're allowed to feel that way. You can't hold on to it. That's the
Yeah.
big part. Treating the offender with compassion, even though they are not entitled to it.
Mm-hmm.
What forgiveness is not. Reconciliation. You don't have to be friends. You don't have to be friends to forgive somebody.
Right.
It is not forgetting the injustice. You don't have to forgive and forget.
Right, you
remember.
can forgive
You can remember.
and not forget.
Yes. Condoning
never
or
forget.
excusing the offender's behavior. Granting legal mercy to the offender. Letting go but wishing for
What
revenge.
is legal mercy?
I think that means like if someone did something legally wrong to you and you let them off the hook because you forgive them. Like if they
Oh,
beat you
yeah.
and you're like, you don't, I'm not going to
Legal
Legal
charge.
mercy.
charges,
All
yeah.
right.
Oh, that's what it says.
What was the last one? That was
Letting go but wishing for revenge. That
Ah.
is not forgiveness.
that is not forgiveness.
No. There's also 4 phases. Do you want to know the 4 phases to forgiveness?
course.
Yeah, but
Guys,
you know
we can
what?
learn so much from
I
this.
mean, letting go but hoping for revenge or wishing for right.
Wishing for revenge.
That's a pretty solid number 2, though, right? You're like, yeah, okay, it's not forgiveness, but that's a pretty solid number 2 because you've let it go, but in your
So-
brain you're like, but if they get hit by a truck, I ain't gonna
But
shed
then
a tear.
you didn't really let it go then.
Well, no,
If
you did.
If you still wish revenge or wrongdoing on them, then you didn't really let it go.
Well, you could say the same thing about forgive but not forget. You're not letting that go either.
Well, I don't know, man.
All right, what are the
4
4?
phases of forgiveness. The uncovering phase, phase 1. During the first phase,
Don't put them out. Dump out their forgiveness.
during the first phase of forgiveness, you will
Yeah.
improve your understanding of the injustice and how it has impacted your life.
The phases of forgiveness,
There's 4 of them,
like a waning gibbous,
kind of.
a
Number
waxing
2.
crescent.
Yeah. The waxing cactopus. Okay. Number 2, the decision phase. During the second phase, you will gain a deeper understanding of what forgiveness is and make the decision to choose or reject forgiveness as an option. You don't have to forgive. You can choose to. Number 3, the work phase. During the third phase, you will start to understand the offender in a new way, which will allow positive feelings toward the offender and yourself. That's where. That's
So
kinda where
you
we're
have
at.
to convert all of this to focus it on a dead person. Whereas
Which
normally
is
this would be
so
a work.
stupid.
This would be a workbook that they would use to point that toward a living person.
Well, you still have to forgive people even if they're dead because you're still harboring those feelings. You can't tell them, I forgive you, but you can let go of it.
So yeah, right.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then-
part of a process.
Phase 4 is the deepening phase, which is, I
Yeah.
think, the follow-up to that Happening movie from a couple years ago. During the final phase of forgiveness, you will further decrease the negative emotions associated with the injustice. You may find meaning in the experience and recognize new ways in which you have grown as a result. I have to do
Wow.
this. And there's like all kinds of, there's like a journal prompt. Describe the injustice you have endured. What happened? Was the treatment unfair? What are the pros and cons of deciding to forgive the person who wronged you? It's like pages and pages of stuff I got.
See, this is why we need a Justice League
We should have a Justice League, a Forgiveness League.
Yeah.
But apparently, I'm angry and don't like to forgive people.
I'm surprised you didn't know you were angry.
I have never, ever, ever thought of myself as an angry
Are you
person.
serious?
Ever. I'm dead serious.
I thought most people, I'm filled with rage. I thought most people were that way.
I would never. Noises! That would probably be one of the last words ever that I would use to describe myself. I would be angry.
Huh.
I want to speak for you, but yeah, I got some anger from you.
Yeah, but it's not often, which is why I think it takes a lot to make me
but-
visibly angry.
I can make you visibly angry every single
you
day
make
with
me annoyed.
It's because you're so angry.
You make me annoyed.
Because you're so angry. No, but even like little like minutia of stand up and things, like the thing you texted me when you were in Detroit, like I could tell you were really mad about that.
I just get I would assume I'm annoyed by a lot of things. But like when it comes to deeper stuff, apparently I'm harboring a lot of anger and I'm refusing to forgive people, and it's negatively impacting me.
You want to forgive me and Alan right now?
For what?
I don't know. I just feel like it's good practice.
I have to go through the whole packet before I can decide that. That's phase 3. The deciding phase is phase 3, Bill. We can't skip the other 2 phases.
We call that a tease in the business.
All right. Well, good. I hope that workbook works out for you.
I have to do that for my dad and bring it back next week with a letter for another member of my
Does it have to be notarized?
No.
Oh.
I have to write another letter for someone else that I'm currently very
All right.
at.
Well, join us next time for Marapy.
Hey, it's
Mary
better than
Santora.
Tears Day.
Tears Day.
We
I
got
cried
Marapy.
all morning.
Well,
Dude,
it wasn't on the show, so it doesn't count.
It was not a good morning for me.
That's because you have so much anger.
Yes. Harboring
it. Right. All right. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
If that's not premature. All right. I've got to take a break here. I will have your key that hopefully will fire up the Buzzard bike. Brand new Harley we're giving away with Budweiser. So we'll do that coming back. 35192. I want to text me for anything else. You can listen anywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival, presented by Capital One.
Coming back to Las Vegas, September 20th and 21st. Streaming live only on Hulu.